Welcome everyone to Bosstaco Farms. I am your host, Bosstaco. Today we're going to be talking about yield farming, chasing yield across the risk-reward spectrum. So for those of you who don't know me yet, I've recently gotten into yield farming, decentralized finance, and have learned just an incredible amount about this space in a short amount of time. And I've had a lot of people ask me what my strategies are and how I go about trying to be profitable in this space and build something that's sustainable. So let's talk a little bit about what yield farming is all about. And for those of you who don't know much about decentralized finance, I have more videos coming up that will walk you through what DeFi is, how to use it. But today we're going to cover a specific part of DeFi called yield farming and some of the risk rewards. So first of all, some ground rules. Always read the docs. Every reliable platform has a doc section that you can read through, or a white paper, something that explains exactly what the platform does, why it exists, how it generates revenue, and what you should expect with your investment here. Second thing to know is that all farm reward tokens carry the highest risk. So I'll show you an example of that in a little bit and when that goes very wrong. Third rule is to understand the platform mechanics. These are smart contracts. These are protocols that have been designed by humans and are therefore subject to human error, not just in the mechanics or the programming of the smart contracts, but in how the overall protocol is designed, how it's designed to work. So understanding what the intent there is and the game theory and being able to follow through and see where it will lead. And that kind of ties into the next point, which is to understand tokenomics, reward emissions, and fees. Again, an example I'll give you in a little bit about this going wrong usually ties into a lack of understanding of these components and exactly the downside risk. Next rule, develop a strategy, and I'll cover how to do that shortly. And last, and probably most important, is to exit as planned. Make sure you have a defined target, and when you get there, time to move on. So let's go through risk reward. So what is risk reward? Well, it's an expected return compared to a potential loss. Anytime you use money, you have a risk reward ratio that you calculate in your head, or really for anything in life, but particularly when it comes to money and how you make investments, you should have a risk reward idea in your head of what you expect versus what you could potentially lose. And here in this space, you will establish this through research and reading the docs. Now, research is watching YouTube videos, reading Twitter, Discord, Telegram, anything you can get your hands on that discusses the project, that gives you a better understanding of it. But I can't stress enough, read the docs. So I have three risk reward scenarios here for you. So the first is growth. And in this space right now, you can expect 2 to 20%. You still have risks of price depreciation, of course, impermanent loss, which we'll cover next, and your smart contract risk as well. Your goal here is to grow more of your underlying asset through compounding or to accumulate a reward token for some passive income. And some of the bigger platform names you'll see here, Aave, Curve, Yearn, Sushi, Uniswap, and Compound. Those are all pretty reliable for good growth returns and have been battle tested and proven. It does not mean they are without risks, but I would assume this has less risk. In fact, I would say it's proven to have less risk than the others. But note, that does not mean no risk. So your strategy here is to stake assets you want to hold and rely on future growth of the platform. Next risk reward scenario, speculation. So you can get some pretty ridiculous APYs and APRs here, anywhere from 20 to 200%. But your risks are extreme price depreciation and extreme impermanent loss, as well as smart contract risk. And here you can suffer from some tokenomic risk as well. And again, more on that later. So your goal here is to speculate on an underlying asset, to farm a reward token for some additional yield, kind of generate some active income. But this does require you to really check pretty regularly on your investments and follow through. Platforms like SpookySwap or Polycat or Beefy are good examples here. And your strategy here should be to be an early project supporter because earlier in the project, it tends to be when you get the best risk-reward ratio. And then lastly, I would say is the degen risk reward scenario. This is anywhere from 200 to a million plus percent APRs. And your risks here are complete loss of funds, extreme smart contract risk, go to zero Ponzonomics rug pulls, and the project goes dark. Your goal here is to chase insane yields. And platforms, they pop up daily, and their entire purpose generally is just to generate yield. So your strategy here is gambling, gamification, get in, get out. This should be a very small part of your overall strategy. So you may have heard a little bit about impermanent loss and LP tokens. That's pretty key to understanding what yield farming is. So let's go through that. So when you are a liquidity provider, you are providing some of your tokens to a pool, and that allows other people to trade in and out of them. Now for doing this, you get fees. So every time someone makes a swap, they pay a fee. You get a portion of those fees. Now in addition, right now, a lot of platforms offer incentives or reward tokens. And you can stake your liquidity provision tokens with the platform and get these extra reward tokens. And from there you can hold them, or you can swap them for something else you want, or you can reinvest them in your liquidity pool. Now the risk here is something called impermanent loss. And this is the loss incurred by price changes in the pool. And as that price moves, you gain more of one asset and you lose some of the other. Now, pairs that have stable relative price, like stable coins, have limited impermanent loss, and this is a pretty good choice for a safe pool, but you will expect lower yields here typically. Now, in some cases, impermanent loss could be a strategy. For example, if you are bullish on both Bitcoin and Ethereum, you could put those in a pool and wind up having some of either, and be okay with that. And along the way, you earn the fees and the reward token as well. So this can play into a strategy too. Now, when you're designing your strategy, a couple things to know. First of all, if you stake in a farm without having a sound strategy, it's exactly the same as YOLOing. You're just throwing your money in there and hoping that you get lucky. So the real question is, what do you want to accomplish, and how can you do this in the most capital efficient way within your risk reward strategy? So some helpful things here to design your strategy. First of all, calculate your share of emissions in terms of the tokens you will receive. Don't trust the APR or APY. That will fluctuate drastically based on a lot of different factors. So instead, calculate your percentage of the pool, and then that is the percentage of the daily emissions from that pool that you will get. That's important. That should be a very key part of your strategy to understand how many of those tokens you're getting, so you can evaluate whether that price goes up or down, if it's still worthwhile for you to be invested in that strategy. Next is to plan for increased dilution, especially if you're talking about investing a smaller amount. As more money comes in, you will have less of a percent of the pool, which means you get less a percent of the reward. So make sure you're planning for that and understanding that likely over time there will be more money deposited and your rewards will be diluted. Third is to join Discord or Telegram channels and read constantly. This is where I've gotten some of the best information that has led me to decisions about when to exit or to change my strategy in the middle. I have a very good example of this coming up here. Fourth, use the platform mechanics and tokenomics to your advantage. So, in some of these riskier strategies, these platforms have a lot of different ways you can attempt to generate more income or higher yields. You can use those to your advantage if you understand intuitively how they work and where the next rotation comes on the platform. Last, have a defined exit, and when you get there, it is time to get out. No one ever went broke taking profits, and this is if you use this as a strategy to consistently generate passive income, I think you'll be very successful here and very happy. All right, so here's an example of when things go wrong in yield farming and some of the downside risks. So you may have heard about the Iron Titan platform. This was a pool that I was in several weeks before it had a collapse, and got in when the total volume locked was relatively low, but increasing pretty steadily. I really liked what the platform was attempting to accomplish, which is an under-collateralized loan, essentially. You would deposit a dollar USDC, or excuse me, 75% approximately USDC and 25% of the Titan token, and you would get $1 worth of the Iron stablecoin, which was meant to always be $1. I thought this was an interesting way to have some capital efficiency. And as you can see at the top of the screen here, at the time they were paying around 1,080%. This was actually right when I was exiting. That seemed pretty ludicrous, and it was continuing to grow day after day as more people piled money in. So effectively the way this worked is you needed to own Iron tokens in order to get the stablecoin, or excuse me, you needed to own Titan tokens in order to get the Iron stablecoin. So you were exposed to the Titan token as well as the Iron stablecoin. Now, if you followed along with the docs here, you would have read and understood how this could go wrong. So, for one thing, you see on the left here, Titan distribution. The planned emission of Titan token is 1 billion. Now, you can see I highlighted the word planned emission. After Iron had a complete meltdown after that panic bank run, a lot of people were saying they couldn't understand how there were so many Titan tokens because there was a max supply of 1 billion. But that is wrong. In the docs, it very clearly stated that the total planned emission was 1 billion Titan tokens. And those are being distributed to the farms every day. I think it was somewhere around 700,000 or so Titan per day. Now, as long as people continued to have demand for the Iron stablecoin, people were buying Titan, and that was raising the price. And many people on the farms were compounding their Titan, so there continued to be less supply available. Right before the implosion, there was around 4 to 5 million Titan available in the circulating supply, but there was already over 200 million Titan locked in the farms. So once people started exiting the farms, people started to panic, and they started to swap out of their Iron stablecoin, which dropped that below peg, which caused more people to panic. And it was a vicious cycle that happened very quickly. Now, the other reason why people didn't understand what could happen here, and when I read this in the docs, I realized what the potential was and what the downside risk here was. This is why I put in a small amount and got out at my defined exit time. So the USDC is deposited into the protocol when a user mints Iron token, while the Titan token, which is used for minting, is burned. When the user redeems Iron tokens, the protocol pays back USDC and mints the required amount of Titan. This means that as people were changing their Iron back into USDC and the equivalent Titan, they were making new Titan. And as the price of Titan declined, more and more Titan was required per Iron minted. Per Iron redeemed. So reading these two sentences here alone, helped me understand what the downside risk was. And exactly what I was afraid of could happen is what happened. It was worse than I imagined, and it happened a lot quicker than I could have imagined. But this is what can go wrong in yield farming, and this is how you can make mistakes if you don't do enough research. The Discord and Telegram of this Iron platform was just filled afterwards with lots of people having lost lots and lots of money. But if they had read the docs and understood, they probably would not have been so open to the amount of risk that was very present. Now, here's a strategy that I've developed that is a long-term strategy, and this is an example of where DeFi can really be a central strategy for your overall investing strategy and give you consistent returns over time. So this is what I call the curve Sushi roll, and it's yielding somewhere between 50 and 60% per year. So my goal here is to maximize my return on investment by accruing more Sushi and curve trading fees. So here's how I did that. I took my curve, my CRV token, and deposited it into Yearn, which gave me YVE CRV DAO. Now this alone would pay me the curve trading fees, and that's somewhere around 15 to 25% per year. So then I took that, the YVE CRV, and deposited that into the YV Boost Vault, also on Yearn. So Yearn will sell my 3 pool reward tokens and buy more YVE CRV DAO for me. This takes my APY up to about 17 to 27%. it gets me additional YVE-CRV, which is an income generating asset that will over time continue to pay you rewards from the Curve platform. So as the Curve platform grows and more fees are accrued, I earn a larger percentage of that. And then lastly, I took that and paired it with an equal amount of ETH and provided liquidity on Sushi swap, which earns me more trading fees. Is subject to impermanent loss. However, in this case, I'm okay with owning more Ethereum and more YV Boost and ultimately YVE-CRV. And I'm also paid about 30% yield in the Sushi token, which I am looking to accumulate and hold to and add to my position without having to buy more. So this is a good example of what DeFi can do for you. It's really about utilizing your assets to get more of the assets that you want. And in crypto and DeFi, you can do that in a number of different ways. So I hope this was helpful, helps you understand what yield farming is, and most importantly, the risks that are out there and the potential for reward too when you follow my rules and have a really clear strategy and execute it the way you intended. So just a last note, a little bit about my channel here. As you can see, this is my first video. And I want to tell you what my goal is. My goal is to build a community that supports DeFi education and best practices. I do have a Discord just with a couple of people. You're welcome to join. We don't shill. We don't talk about price, TA, to the moon. We're not moon boys and dreaming of Lambos. We are playing the game of creating more assets and building on to what you have and retaining your capital and growing wealth. So join me. Planning on releasing a new video every Tuesday where we review a protocol, including how to use it. And on Saturdays, we'll do DeFi education. We'll cover some different topics in DeFi and very similar to what you saw today. So thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and maybe consider sharing if you've learned a few things here.